Is there a rivalry brewing between Angel Reese and Kiki Iriafen? Every time these two ladies face off, there seems to be some bad blood in the air. There seems to be some tension between the two. Those two faced off in USA camp. Kiki Iriafen taking it right to Angel Reese's chest, knocking her over. Yesterday, they went head-to-head in the preseason. Kiki Iriafen saying, "Get that weak stuff out of here."
At first, it sounded like ordinary crowd noise. But within seconds, the reaction toward Angel Reese became impossible to ignore. The chants got louder, the tension got heavier, and the entire building started feeling uncomfortable in a way that went beyond basketball. Even the cameras caught the moment her expression changed. That was the second people realized this wasn't just another rivalry storyline anymore. Something had clearly crossed the line. But what exactly triggered the crowd to turn on her that fast? And why did the situation suddenly feel so personal?
Freaking stoppable.
An inside touch to Lauren.
Just dominant. Grabs that board. Look at that. My God. Seriously. Inside from Kiki. Wow. I mean, look at that pass. Y'all see that pass? Are you kidding me? How about the jumper? How about the jumper? Inside, back inside, banging under the... That looked like that might have been against Angel. I don't know.
What was supposed to be just another routine game somehow exploded into one of the most uncomfortable atmospheres of the season once Angel Reese became the center of attention. The basketball barely mattered anymore because the energy inside the arena kept escalating with every moment she touched the ball. By the end of the night, people weren't even talking about the game itself. They were talking about the crowd reaction that completely stole the spotlight.
How did Angel Reese make the WNBA? Airballing layups, barging into defenders, double dribbles. This is ridiculous.
At first, it looked like a harmless preseason matchup that nobody would remember. But somewhere along the way, the entire mood inside the arena shifted. Every play started carrying extra emotion. Every whistle sparked louder reactions. And the crowd's energy began turning the game into something much bigger than anyone expected.
Angel Reese made it her mission to troll the Detroit Pistons. She made it her mission to troll a certain Jalen Durant. The Orlando Magic up. Angel Reese with the Orlando Magic center, Wendell Carter Jr., her ex on the Detroit Pistons. She made it her mission to rub it in his face every time the Magic did something good against the Detroit Pistons. Not only did the Detroit Pistons have the last laugh, the Detroit Pistons fans had the last laugh with chants of Angel Reese ringing out.
By now, Angel Reese walks into every game knowing the spotlight is already waiting for her. Every performance becomes a debate, every moment becomes a headline, and every reaction gets amplified online almost instantly. But lately the conversation around her has been taking a different tone entirely, one that feels far more uncomfortable than the attention she used to thrive on.
And this is the problem with Angel Reese. This is what I told y'all about. She's playing outside of the confines of her body.
Should I say, and I agree with that decision.
She doesn't need to do this on this Atlanta Dream Team. Play within the confines of your talent. You don't have to force anything.
Wants to see if his defense improves, and that 7-2 run is behind the defense. The ball is blocked.
You have Alicia Gray, you have Ryan Howard, you have Jordan Canada, and they'll be setting the table and the plate for you. All you have to do is...
Questions had already been building around Angel Reese before the game even started. People were debating her role, criticizing her consistency, and even wondering whether certain lineup decisions were helping or hurting the team. That meant she stepped onto the floor carrying pressure long before the opening whistle. And when a player enters a game with that kind of spotlight already locked onto them, every mistake suddenly feels bigger while every successful moment gets analyzed from every possible angle. Then came the matchup that made everything even more intense. Because every time Reese ends up sharing the floor with Caitlin Clark, the energy instantly changes. There's always an edge to it, always a feeling that something bigger could happen at any moment. Clark attacked early with confidence, pushing the pace and going directly at Reese in a way that immediately sent a message that this would not be a calm or forgettable night. Reese answered with the same fire and emotion that has become part of her identity. But this time there was a noticeable difference. Instead of looking fully in control of the moment, She almost seemed to be reacting to the chaos around her. And as the game continued, the tension only kept growing louder. Then came the sequence everyone started replaying afterward. Reese attacked the rim aggressively looking for a strong finish, only for the play to get shut down in emphatic fashion. The crowd exploded instantly, the bench reactions added even more fuel to the atmosphere, and suddenly the energy inside the arena shifted into something far more personal than a normal basketball game.
Hey, Clan, was that also an accident too? Cause y'all know y'all say the first one was an accident when it was clearly a hit to the face. That y'all say that was an accident. So the very next game, after Kiki puts lockdown defense on her, then she just accidentally get hit in the face again. Accident, right? Hey, and it may have been an accident. I'm just posing the question to y'all.
It wasn't just a block. It felt like a message to everyone watching. The kind of play that instantly changes the energy inside an arena. And the reaction afterward made it even louder because you could tell she knew exactly how big that moment was. Reese, never the type to back away from confrontation, fired back with a stare that practically froze the entire atmosphere for a second. But while the emotion was rising, the game itself was slowly starting to lean in a completely different direction. And that's where things became impossible to ignore. One possession later, Reese attacked the rim again looking to answer back. And once again she was met with resistance that forced another difficult finish. Then it happened again. And again. Suddenly it stopped feeling like isolated moments and started looking like a pattern unfolding in real time. What made it even tougher was that the impact wasn't only happening on one side of the floor. While Reese was fighting through physical defense and mounting frustration, the other end told a completely different story. Perimeter shots started falling. Confident drives opened up the offense. The spacing changed. The momentum shifted. Every successful possession seemed to widen the gap in control between the two players. And that's when the contrast became impossible for the crowd to miss. One player looked like she was trying to force the game into submission, playing faster and more emotional with every possession. The other looked completely comfortable letting the game naturally unfold around her, picking moments carefully and controlling the pace without ever looking rushed. By that point, the tension inside the arena no longer felt tied to a single play. It felt tied to the realization that the matchup itself was telling a much bigger story.
Dominant today. In case you're wondering, Angel Reese, still not good from the field. 3 for 7, 10 points. I mean, good God Almighty. Not good. By the way, Mystics defeated the Dream. Defeated the Dream. It was ugly. No doubt about it. Let's just check it out. This is going to get real ugly for you-know-who. Get out. Get out. She got all kinds of ball.
And just when it felt like the spotlight would stay locked purely on the on-court battle, another layer of noise entered the picture. Because beyond the game itself, a separate off-court narrative had already started circulating around Reese, loosely tied to NBA names like Wendell Carter Jr. and Jalen Duren, the kind of online chatter that begins as speculation and quickly grows into something fans run with far beyond its original context. What might have been harmless jokes or passing social media talk ended up becoming fuel for a very different kind of crowd reaction. During a separate game involving Carter Jr. at the free throw line, the atmosphere inside the arena unexpectedly shifted, as scattered chants and reactions echoed through the stands. It wasn't really about the possession in front of them anymore. It felt like the audience was reacting to everything surrounding the broader narrative rather than the game itself. And that's where things took on a strange irony. Even though Reese wasn't on the floor, her name somehow stayed in the center of attention, pulled into a moment that had nothing directly to do with her performance. Instead of being driven by basketball action, the energy became shaped by perception, social media narratives, and the kind of internet-fueled storyline that spreads faster than any highlight ever could.
According to Angel Reese and her pretend friends in the mainstream media, Caitlin Clark fans are racist. There have been multiple reports that Caitlin Clark is struggling to sell tickets. The demand just isn't the same. Speaking of Angel Reese, though, what I found most interesting about this list is where ESPN ranks their face of the league. Unfortunately for Angel Reese, the polish seems to be melting off the turd.
Back on the court, Reese's performance started to reflect the kind of uphill battle she was dealing with throughout the night. It wasn't a collapse by any means, but it also wasn't the kind of dominant showing that silences conversation. Her rebounding stayed consistent, still one of her clearest strengths, but the scoring efficiency became the part people couldn't stop pointing to. And that's where the narrative started to tighten around her again. Because when a physically dominant player keeps generating chances but doesn't consistently convert them, it naturally becomes the easiest talking point for critics. Every missed finish turns into a question. Every quiet stretch turns into a debate. And even when the overall impact is still there, the conversation tends to drift toward what's not showing up on the box score. Meanwhile, on the other side of the floor, players like Lauren Betts were putting together performances that drew attention in a completely different way. Betts showed composure, soft touch, and a level of control that made her impact feel steady rather than forced. It wasn't about flashy moments, it was about efficiency, timing, and consistency that slowly built momentum throughout the game. And that's where the comparison became unavoidable. Because in sports, performances rarely exist in isolation. When one player struggles and another thrives in the same environment, the contrast writes its own storyline. It may not always be fair, but it is always inevitable. Fans start stacking expectations against outcomes, projections against reality, and suddenly even a preseason matchup gets treated like evidence in a much bigger argument about roles, potential, and where everyone fits moving forward.
So, as with most things involving Angel Reese, fans and her fan base, it's not exactly what it appears, and it's not the flex that they think it is. This Angel Reese fan writes, has there been any other WNBA player who got their name chanted amongst a 20,000 sold-out NBA crowd? Just Angel Reese. Oh, and I don't know why her fans always choose the worst things to flex. So
beyond individual matchups, the opposing lineup's overall performance highlighted something even more noticeable: cohesion. Their ball movement looked cleaner, decisions were made faster, and there was a visible rhythm to almost every possession. It wasn't just that they were playing well individually, it was that they looked connected, like each action was naturally leading into the next. And that contrast made the gap in execution feel even wider across the floor. Still, Reese didn't fade into the background. She kept competing, kept battling, and kept showing the same intensity that has always defined her game. There were possessions where she fought through contact, cleaned up rebounds in traffic, and tried to physically shift the momentum in her team's favor. But the consistency wasn't fully there, and in a game where rhythm matters, those interruptions and flow became more noticeable than usual. And that's where the perception starts to split. In a matchup filled with highlight moments on both sides, her contributions began to feel uneven, flashes of impact surrounded by stretches where the game drifted away from her influence. In an environment like that, visibility cuts both ways. It can represent confidence and competitiveness, but it can also turn into a target for scrutiny depending on how the narrative is already shaped. The crowd reaction only amplified that tension. What might have once been support or neutral attention started to sound more layered, even divided, a reminder of how quickly admiration can shift into criticism when expectations are high. One moment a player is the focal point of attention and conversation, and the next, that same attention becomes the source of pressure. Because in the end, it's rarely just about a single performance. It's about timing, expectation, and the story already being written around it. And when those things collide, even an ordinary game stops feeling ordinary at all.
With this list being compiled by ESPN, you would think Angel Reese would be in the top 5, right? At minimum. The woman responsible for inventing a new statistic called rebounds would not only be a top 10 player in the WNBA, Angel Reese should be ranked as a top 10 player in all of basketball, both real and pretend. Right? According to ESPN, Angel Reese isn't even a top 20 player in a league filled with players who would struggle to beat a team of high school boys.
And yet, this still isn't the end of the story. If anything, nights like this tend to shape everything that comes next. Situations like these usually become turning points. Moments where players either absorb the noise, adjust their game, and come back stronger, or slowly allow the outside narrative to start influencing how they're seen. Reese has already shown she can handle attention. That's never been the question. The real question now is whether she can channel that attention into performances that shift the conversation back in her direction. Because at this level, perception changes fast, and momentum in public opinion is just as real as momentum in a game. The irony is that the same crowd that can turn a player into a target of criticism is often the same crowd that can turn them into a celebration. The difference between those two versions isn't always effort or talent alone. It's timing, consistency, and how well a player responds when the pressure is at its highest. Right now, though, the narrative around her is leaning in a tougher direction. And whether it's entirely fair or not, it's getting louder with each outing. Critics keep circling back to the same concerns: finishing around the rim, efficiency in high-contact situations, and whether her game is expanding at the same pace as her profile. Meanwhile, comparisons to players like Caitlin Clark only intensify that conversation, especially when others are visibly adding layers to their game in real time, stretching the floor, improving decision-making, and showing versatility that stands out on every possession. When those comparisons start stacking up, they don't just describe a game anymore. They start shaping expectations, and expectations quickly turn into pressure. And that's where things get complicated. Because once a narrative reaches that level, every performance stops being evaluated on its own, and instead becomes another piece of a much larger story people have already decided they're watching unfold.